So now I'll be putting forth some questions like, what is growth? What is development? Now, is growth equal to development? This is something which we need to ponder upon, right? Is growth really equal to development? The answer is no. There is a lot of difference. Let us see what is that. Now, let us take the example of human beings, okay? The lives of human beings. Now, here in the picture on your left-hand side, you can see that there is a baby which is growing over the periods in height. Okay, so now you can say that the baby is grown in height. You can quantify it. Okay, this is a physical parameter which can be quantified. Okay, now let me put forth some questions to you guys. Now, if I ask you, is this baby healthy? What is the emotional quotient of this particular baby? Right? How is this baby mingling well with its peer group? Right, now these questions, when I start asking you guys, I'm pointing towards the development, overall development of this particular individual. So when I start talking about those parameters that define the quality of life of an individual, then I am moving towards development. Okay, so here you can see this particular diagram where you can say that when I want to measure whether there is development in the lives of the individual, what are the parameters that I need to look upon? I need to look upon whether there are health services available, whether there is quality of environment, the financial well-being, the belongingness to the society, about the personal safety, work culture, the emotional well-being, the social relationships. Now, all these things put together would give us an idea about the quality of life of an individual. Now you can say that there is development among the individuals of a country if these parameters are present. Okay. Now let me just give you a very simple example which would make your concept clear. Now, if there is a city wherein there are, for example, let us take a place, there are 5,000 people living there. Okay. Now, what happens is in the next year, when the number of people are counted, we found that the number of people has increased to 8,000. Okay. Now, if I ask you, has the number of people grown? Yes, there is an increase in the number of people. Very easily, you can just subtract 8,000 minus 5,000. So, there are 3,000 people added to the population of that particular place. Now, this we are talking about growth in the numbers, quantity. Okay, now let me put forth certain other questions as well. Now, are all the individuals in this place getting the access to healthcare and education facilities? Do they have the basic necessities like sanitation, like cleanliness? Or all these things available to them? Now, when I start thinking about these aspects, then I am referring or I am interested in knowing whether that place has developed, whether the human being's quality of life has improved. Okay, so now you need to understand the difference between growth and development. Let us just summarize these concepts. So here you can see that growth and development refers to changes over a period of time. Now, you need to stress upon this word changes, okay? Because what happens is you need to have a reference. Okay, now only when you have a reference, you can see whether there's an improvement or whether there is a degradation. Okay, so now this reference would actually tell us what is our present status. Okay, now there are two things. Understand this. The reference can be from the past. Okay, so now you're seeing whether when you compare certain thing from the past, has it increased? Has it grown in number? Has it developed? So these are the questions you're going to put forth. So these are the changes over a time period. Okay, now when you predict something or when you're anticipating something, your reference would be of the future. Okay, so this gap that we can see from present to reference in the past or present to reference in the future is known as change. Okay, so that change is expressed in terms of either growth or in terms of development. Now, when we are referring to only quantity, we are talking about growth. But when we start analyzing the qualitative aspects, then we are talking about development. Right? Now, there's one other point that you need to understand, that growth can be both positive or and negative. Okay, like for example, there can be increase in the number of people, or because of migration there can be decrease in the number of people in a particular area when you compare them from the previous year, right? Similarly, the GDP growth can either increase or decrease, so the growth rate can be positive or negative, right? But when you talk about development, when I say that this particular area has developed, okay, then I am saying it in a positive sense, where I am talking about the quality improvement, right? Okay, friends, now we have come to the topic on which this entire chapter is based. Okay, now why did we even discuss growth and development? First of all, we need to ask that question. See, whenever we want to, we are going to analyze how a particular economy is growing. Okay, so now when we are talking about this growth, you should understand that we are going to have certain statistics with us. Okay, now based on these statistics, we are going to decide whether there has been increase in numbers. Now, which numbers? All these things we will see in the further sections. Okay, now in the next chapter of ours, that is human development, there we will talk about development. Okay, so now you need to understand that in this chapter, whatever discussion we are going to have, it is going to be restricted to growth. Okay, that is, we are going to have a look at the numbers, then we are going to infer whether a particular economy is growing or not. Now this growth is quantity, understand that. Okay, so now we can see that there is a linkage, or we will form a linkage by the end of this chapter with the human development. Okay, now talking about economy, first of all, just read this definition, which is a standardized one, that the economy is the organized system of human activity involved in the production, consumption, exchange, and distribution of goods and services. Now, very simply speaking, first of all, just understand that when we say economy, this we are referring to a particular system that exists. Okay, now this particular system is expected to be organized. Okay, because there are certain checks and balances, there are certain rules that are in existence that drive this economy in a particular direction. So that is what is called organized system. Now, what is happening in this particular system that we are referring to? There are a lot of human activities that are taking place. Right? Now, what are these human activities? You can see that there are production of goods, consumption, exchange of goods and services. There is distribution of goods and services among the people of the country, right? Or the world, in fact. Okay, so this in the whole is referred to as economy. Fine, very simple. Now, this economy applies to everyone. Okay, if we can talk about economy applying to a single individual, okay, or a group of individuals, or we can also refer to economy being applied to the entities like the corporations and the government. Okay, in fact, in our day-to-day life, we are experiencing, or we are in fact this part of the system. Okay, so friends, now the one question that should be hitting your mind is, are all the economies same? Like if there's a country X and Y, this has a particular economy running inside the country. This particular Y country has a separate economy. So are these same? No, the answer is no. Why? Why is that so? See, there are various factors that has its effect on the economy of a particular region or country. Okay, in fact, you can say that within a country also, the regions would experience different activities taking place. Okay, now linked to the fact that we have just now seen the definition. What is happening in that economy? There are various human activities taking place. Now, whenever there is the human factor attached to anything, always this human activities is going to be dependent on many factors. Now, what are those factors? Those factors can be cultural. Those can be based upon the rules and regulations, again, which are framed by individuals. The history of a place, of the people living there, the geography. Okay, so because of all these things, the economy of a particular region or country keeps evolving, in fact. Okay, and that is why we cannot say that the economies of all the countries, or in fact all the regions, is the same. Okay, for example, if there is a landlocked country, okay, then obviously it would be in the need of certain items which are different when you compare it with the countries living in the coastal areas. So accordingly, it will coordinate or frame rules and regulations for it. Now you can see here, because of the necessity which had arrived because of the geographical features leads to difference in economies between the countries, right? So friends, now one question that we need to ask ourselves, in fact, is what is the need for an economy? Is it really necessary? Do we need a system in place? Yes, we do. Why is it so? See, understand that the major aim behind coming up with a organized system is to increase the efficiency, the capability with which the work is done, the capability with which the quality of life can be improved. So all these things can be done only when we have certain rules and regulations, certain systems in place. Okay. Now, why do we need these things? See, we all know that the resources are limited. Okay, but the human needs and desires are unlimited. So when there is very little of something and there are many users competing for the same little resource, then we need to form a system which comes to ration or budget things. Okay, you need to allocate it in such a way that at least each one of us have a place to live, right? So for all these things, for all these purpose, we require an organized system which is referred to an economy here, right? So friends, for the same reason, we need to come up with certain need classification as well. Okay, so we would have heard that there are various sectors of an economy. We have the primary sector, we have the secondary one, there is tertiary sector. Why again this classification? Same, go back to the reasoning. We want to make things simple. Okay, we need to come up with an efficient system so that we can allocate the limited resources among all the competing users, right? So here we have these sectors where when you refer to primary sector, it is nothing but the sector or the activities that make use of Earth's natural resources. Okay, for example, agriculture, right? You can see that what agriculture does, the resource that the Mother Earth has given us, we are utilizing that and we are coming up with the product, right? So when such things take place, we refer to those activities coming under primary sector of an economy, right? Now you start adding value to the products that are obtained in the primary sector. When you start adding value to this, through how do you add value? You can either do certain manufacturing process. Okay, there can be processing that is taking place. Okay, there can also be construction on land. Land is a natural resource, right? You are constructing buildings there. Okay, that is infrastructure. So when all these things are in existence which adds value to the natural products, then that particular sector is referred to as secondary sector, right? Finally, coming to tertiary sector, this involves services plus exchanges. Now, what are these services? Anything which are offered in respect of certain monetary terms, okay, or even without that. Okay, for example, let me tell you, these are abstract things. Okay, now the teacher comes to the class and teaches. What is a teacher offering? Services. A doctor treats a patient. What is a doctor offering? Services. Can you touch that service? No. This is something which is transmitted. Okay, it is not materialistic. So these are called services. Okay, now when you see exchange of what? Exchange of goods and services through what? Through maybe mode of communication, mode of transportation, right? So all these activities form a part of tertiary sector, right? Okay friends, now moving on to the major part of this particular chapter, which is economic growth. So by now we have understood what is an economy. We have also dealt with this particular term in detail, that is what is growth, right? So now what is economic growth? Very simple. When you are measuring quantitatively whether the production of a country is increased or not, that particular term is referred to as economic growth. So we are seeing the increase in the capacity of an economy to produce goods and services, and we are comparing that particular capacity from one period of time to another. right? So remember that always a reference period is important. So keeping that reference period in mind, only then we can judge whether there's an increment or decrement, right? So now just one question for you guys. I'll not be answering this question. You need to think in your minds, and when we are starting with the next chapter, we will answer this particular question. Okay. So now tell me, what is the difference between economic growth and development of a country? So when I say that this particular country X is growing economically, so is it equal to the development of country X? So this is a question. We will answer this when we are coming to chapter number 2, that is human development, right? Okay, now an important question. How do we find out whether the economy of a country is growing or not? Okay, we need to measure its capacity. Capacity of what? To produce goods and services, right? Now, as we see that we need to have certain measurements. So for that, we need certain indicators. With the help of these indicators, we will be able to measure the capacity. Okay, so let us see what these indicators are. Now let us have a look at what are the indicators. So we have GDP, which is gross domestic product. We have GNP, which is gross national product. We have NNP, which is net national product. We have NDP, that is net domestic product. Okay. So now just quickly, why are these indicators used? To measure the capacity. Capacity of what? Capacity to produce goods and services in a particular country. Right? Now, what will happen if we measure the capacity? We will get to know whether the economic growth is positive or negative, right? So this is what we are going to achieve when we comprehend or when we calculate these indicators. Okay, let's go one by one. Before that, one important thing that I need to mention here is each country calculates its national income. Okay, so now this national income can be considered any one of these indicators. Okay, it varies country to country. In India, okay, GDP, this particular indicator, if you calculate, it is going to give the national income of India. Okay, so kindly make note of it. And in the further sections, we will also see that GDP at what? There are certain prices. We are going to discuss that as well. So we will see that when those concepts come. For now, just keep in your mind that in India, GDP indicator, gross domestic product, is said to be the national income of our country, right? Now let us study these indicators one by one. So first coming up is GDP. What we'll do is we will take each one of these in a very gradual manner. These are very simple. Okay, so first when you say GDP, gross domestic product. When you see this term domestic, what does this mean? You need to understand the meaning first. See, imagine that this is the boundary of a particular nation, territorial boundary. So whatever goods are produced here, plus whatever services are being offered in this particular territorial boundary of a country is included in this particular calculation. So just keep these things in mind. Okay, just this one pointer. Second, there is this important term that you can see here, which is called gross. There are three things you need to know. One is gross, one is net, and the third term, depreciation. Okay, so you understand one thing, that from gross, if you minus depreciation, you will get net. Okay, so gross minus depreciation is net. Okay, so instead of getting confused, let me just briefly tell you what is this. In the coming section, we will also have a look at it in detail. See, one thing you understand that, okay, whatever thing that you're using, okay, be it a sharpener, be it a pencil, or for example in your homes you would have used that knives, right, to cut certain vegetables. So you can see that there is a sharpness of the knife which is there when you have newly bought one. Okay, but over the period of time, when you start using it to cut vegetables daily, you will see that the sharpness of it starts to reduce. Okay, what is that? What is happening there? This is called wear and tear that is taking place. Okay, as time is passing by, its efficiency to cut the vegetables is reducing. Okay, one other thing now you need to understand, if its efficiency to cut vegetables reducing, its price or its worth is also reducing. Okay, because obviously if the efficiency is reducing, the price for which you have bought that particular knife is going to reduce, right? So over a period of time, any machinery or any vehicle also that you get, it experiences wear and tear. Because of that, the value for which it was bought actually decreases over a period of time. You can say every day there is a decrease. You can calculate that decrease monthly or even yearly. Okay, so when I start taking into account that depreciation, and when I minus that depreciation from gross, I would get net value. Okay, so I am stating the actual value that a particular product has, taking into account that over a period of time there is going to be wear and tear, and because of which the price of a particular product is going to go down, right? That is called gross minus depreciation, which is called net. Okay, even if you're not able to understand, just hold on to this thought. We will move forward. Okay, see, so coming to gross domestic product, it is defined as the total market value of all the final goods and services which is produced within the country in a given period of time, usually a year. So first thing, what we are doing, we are calculating the final value, the final market value of all the goods and services that are produced where? Within the territorial boundaries of a country. Okay, so when I start calculating and adding these things, I'm going to get a value. Okay, now you need to have a reference period. Understand that usually it is taken to be a year. So within that 1 year, what is the final value of all the goods and services that were produced in a particular country? So that value is said to be GDP, that is gross domestic product, right? Now, there's one other important point that you need to look for here. When you are calculating the value of the final goods and services, the intermediate goods, the value of intermediate goods is not taken into account. Okay, now why is that you're not taking into account the value of the inputs or the intermediate goods? Because it would lead to double counting. Okay, let me give you an example, only then this particular concept would be clear. Okay, now let us take an example which we were just referring to. So if there is an economy, okay, very hypothetical one, there are two players in it. Okay, one is the farmer, okay, and the other one is owning a bakery, okay, and that particular person manufactures bread. Okay, now to make bread, the person requires wheat as a raw material or the intermediate good. Okay, so what happens is he goes to the farmer, asks him to sell wheat to him. So the farmer says it is worth rupees 500. Okay, so the farmer gets rupees 500 and the manufacturer gets wheat. Okay, now he starts preparing bread and he fixes the price of the bread to be rupees 1000. Okay, now you need to answer this question: what is the GDP of this particular economy? Okay, see, as far as the definition is concerned that we have just seen, GDP is nothing but the total value of the final goods and services that are produced within a country. Now, since we are referring to gross domestic product, domestic, we are concerned only with the activities and the goods produced within this boundary, the territorial boundary of a particular country. And because we are not involving the concept of depreciation, okay, so we are only referring to the value that we see rather than subtracting the depreciation from gross and getting the net value. No, because it is gross. Okay, and third important point, if you guys noticed, it is the final value. Okay, final value. Now there are two chances. Some of you will say that the GDP is 500 plus 1000. Why? Why is it so? Because the farmer's goods, which is the cultivation of wheat here, costs how much? Rupees 500. So we have taken this into account. Then what was the other product that is there in this particular economy apart from wheat? That is bread.